we now come to the part of the program where you guys get the information directly from FilmTT. Coming on now, we have Regina Seabrun. She's a facilitations officer at FilmTT, and she's going to take us through the process of understanding and applying for that rebate that FilmTT offers. Regina, where are you? There you are. Hello, my dear. How have you been enjoying the day? You're muted. You're muted.
You hear me?
We're hearing you now, Annie. How was the day? What did you think about what we've heard so far?
You hearing me, Deborah?
We're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, great, perfect.
Right. So what did you think about today? Have you now joined the Eastern Greenwich Union? Do you now have an account?
I've had an account since I was born.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I was going to say, yeah, but
since I was born.
All right.
Yes, no, yeah.
All right.
Parents, like straight out the womb into the credit union.
There you go. So we preach to the choir. All right.
Yes.
So Regina,
from you.
The floor is now all yours. Tell us all about the rebate and how we can access it and all about it. Take it away.
All right, great. So hi everybody, my name is Regina Seabrun, as Deborah said. I am the Facilitations Officer at FilmTT. I've been here for about nearly 3 years, and in that time I have learned a lot about the industry side of things from the admin perspective. And one of the biggest challenges was navigating the rebate program itself, because it's not complex, but the nuances take a bit of getting used to. So Leslie Ann had a really great idea, and I did agree that we would sit and go through the rebate process, go through the application forms, go through the rebate guide, and some of the final points, how to apply what you need to know. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to, right, here we go, share. Right, so welcome to my little powwow, how to apply for the rebate program and get all your ducks in a row, because this is one process where I would say from the jump, be organized, keep track of everything, make sure that you are documenting your process as you go, and please, 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 for the love of all that is good and holy in this world, ensure that your business is registered and that you're up to date with all your BIR documents, your taxes. That is one of the most important things I want you to keep in mind as you go forward, right? So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and they will be passed along to me and I will answer them at the end. There's a question segment, right? You'll see a little cue card that says questions. All right, so let's go. All right, so your production expenditure rebate program. So this is the #1 or primary production incentive for Trinidad and Tobago, and it is available to local and international productions, and you are qualified for the rebate based on specific criteria. So for Trinidad and Tobago producers, we call that a local production, right? So I'll go through a local production applying and how an international production, which we would call a co-production, would apply, right? So for the TNT productions, local producer production, film, TV series, documentaries, mini-series, you have a flat 35% cashback on qualifying expenditure. Now, I will explain all these little terms that take a little getting used to later. And like I said, we'll do some really fun math, which, bear with me here, right? So for TNT producers, you have a flat 35% cashback on qualifying production expenditure for budgets US $15,000 and up, right? So there's no tier. So you see on the screen here, the tiers are for the international productions, right? So it's 12.5 cashback on US 100,000 and up, 15% cashback US 500,000 and up, and 35% cashback for US $1 million and up, $1 million to $8 million, right? And everybody, local producers and international producers, get an additional 20% top up for hiring local labor. Now, the nuance there is that the rebate language says up to 55, but don't just go calculating 55% of whatever your budget is or whatever your qualifying spend is. Like I said, we're going to go through how to apply for that and how to pay attention when you're doing that math. And I should have put this in bold. The rebate can only be paid to a production company that is registered in Trinidad and Tobago. So one of the first things I said earlier was to make sure that your business is registered and you have your certificate of incorporation, right? This is part of this. You have to be registered if you want to access the rebates. And international producers can only register and apply for the rebate through a local company. So if you have any friends in the US who are looking to make content and they're looking for a great location and they want to partner with you, that's great, that's fine. But they have to go through you in order to, and by extension, then FilmTT to access the rebate, right? So moving on. Application process, 3 stages, very simple. Provisional application. At the end of this, you get a provisional certificate, and I'll show you what that looks like a little later when we go through the forms. Then there's a completed application, audit and approval. So between provisional and completed is when you would film. So before you start filming, you apply for your provisional certificate, you get it, and you get a provisional certificate, and then you film, and then within 3 months of your first public premiere, you fill out the completed application form with all your final budget details and all your final paperwork, final invoices. You get it audited, and then once it's approved, the rebate panel signs off on it, and then the payment is issued. So let me just put a little pin here and say that payment of the rebate is granted once all documents are in order. So in the past, we have had instances where upon final application and it goes to the panel, we had to go back and forth with the applicant to get things done, like the tax clearance certificate, the BIR, staff members from BIR and personnel, high-ranking personnel that are on the rebate panel, and they cannot sign off on the rebate without proper tax documentation, aka a tax clearance certificate and certificate of incorporation. I feel like a stuck record saying it, but I'm going to repeat it more than once because that's one of the nail in the coffin things for a lot of people. And it takes a while to get these documents sometimes. So I say take in front and start early and make sure you have all this in line. Once the rebate panel signs off on the rebate and it's approved, you will be notified via FilmTT that your rebate has been signed off and has gone back to the Ministry of Trade for payment to be issued. Now, from that instance, not from when you submit the final application, from the day that the rebate panel signs off on your rebate, from then it's about between 3 to 6 months before payment is issued. And that is out of FilmTT's hands. It's in the Ministry of Trade's hands and the Ministry of Finance's hands at that point. But like I said, once the rebate panel has signed off, then you could start counting, okay, 3 to 6 months. We were in a pandemic this year, but we're still in a pandemic. We're not really going anywhere. So I would say give yourself like a 8 months because of the way COVID is taking up, all the country's money at this point in time. But yes, so once all documents are submitted, we have a checklist that you could follow. Then it goes to the rebate panel. The rebate panel will sometimes send documents back for clarification. I would also advise, this is not a mandatory piece, but I would strongly advise that once you register your company, you get a company stamp so that you can stamp and sign documents when you are submitting them. So, little things to keep in mind, right? So here we have the checklist for international production. So the checklist for the provisional and final are generally the same. It's just we label them differently because we have a different filing system for the rebate itself. So here you see here the checklist for provisional application. Completed application form. I am very, very pleased to tell you that the application form is now 3 pages. Those of you who have very fond memories of the old rebate forms, I am very happy to tell you it is now 3 pages. It's very simple, very concise, need to know information, and everything else is attachments that you would submit in support, right? So For a provisional certificate, you must complete these documents. I tick them off as they are received. And if you don't have a provisional certificate in your hand, it's probably because one of these things is missing, or information in one of these things is missing, right? It happens, we'll work through it, it's fine, right? Completed application form, script, or the synopsis. I would tell people send both, because for reporting purposes, you don't want to send an entire script, so you would just send a synopsis. Projected budget, letter of intent to film on location, these are very important. For your projected budget, you do not have to know for absolute certain you're going to spend $1,136.25. You can project based on the financing that you do have, or that you're going to get, that you're going to have in the range of $2 million to spend on this film. Now, you have to submit a projected budget with different line items. These figures are subject to change in the final application, so that's fine. Projected budget, right? Letter of intent to film on location, very, very simple and straightforward. This letter serves to say that this letter serves to say that Tom Cruise of Tribe Carnival intends to shoot Die Hard on location. I know Tom Cruise is not from there, it's fine. Intends to shoot Die Hard on location in Trinidad and Tobago with a budget of $6.4 million US, and say who is financier. So with the finances of the Walt Disney Company, something very simple like that. For international productions, be aware that the financing information is necessary for us to know from a transparency perspective. And even for local productions, if you're getting state funding, please outline that in your letter of intent that you have received, and you have to outline in your budget as well. Say, okay, if you receive a grant from Ministry of Culture for $150,000 that will go towards funding the film, you just put that in there so that we know it has to be removed from the rebate calculation, right? List of scenes to be shot on location. Again, can be tentative. It's not, you're not pigeonholed by what you put in that document, but you have to say what scenes you would like to shoot on location in Trinidad and where, even if it's tentative locations. Because then that kind of gives us an idea of, okay, the scope and the scale of the project, right? Letter confirming that FilmTT will be credited. Again, this letter serves to confirm that FilmTT will be credited in XYZ film, and the line is, this project was made with the support of the Trinidad and Tobago Film Company. Very simple, right? Certificate of incorporation, you see, it's back, right? You don't have to send us the entire booklet that you get from the Board of Inland Revenue. You could just give us a copy of the actual certificate itself, and we can arrange for you to visit the office for the original to be seen and the copy to be stamped. That could always be arranged but it has to be by appointment only, right? And sources of funding, like I said, outline this in your projected budget, and please note all funding received from any ministry or state agency must be clearly outlined. I would say separately, like on a separate page of your budget, outline that entirely, funding from Ministry of Culture, funding from FilmTT, etc., etc., and outline it and total it at the bottom so that it can be compared with the final budget when it's submitted, right? Is there a maximum budget that qualifies? No, but the cap is $8 million US per project per fiscal year, and the fiscal year is October 1st to September 30th of the following year, right? So 8 million US is roughly 52 million TT around there, so that's the cap. And again, the line, any money granted to a production by a government-funded grant program must be subtracted from the QTTPE prior to calculating the amount of the rebate. All right, so what are the eligible formats for the rebate? So we have feature films, television movies, dramatic TV series or miniseries, foreign commercials, documentaries, animation. And you see at the bottom there's a little note to pay attention to: what constitutes a TV half hour and what constitutes a TV hour. So the balance of time between the 45 and the 60 would be time for advertisements. Same thing for the TV half hour, but those are very key things to pay attention to when you are planning your productions, right? And for the TV series, it's a maximum of 13 episodes or 13 hours entirely. Right, so you move on to non-eligible formats. So no single episode of a series. For example, for those of you who watch Modern Family, you know how around the end of the season, they would take a family vacation. So if the Pritchards take Trinidad, that won't constitute or be eligible for the rebate because it's just a single episode or even 2 episodes out of a major series in itself. But that would be fun. Discussion programs, so like Morning Brew, stuff like that, those wouldn't be eligible. Current affairs shows and the Super 360, for example, won't qualify. News programs, no panel programs, no variety programs, no sports events or production of a public event, no how-tos or anything that contains obscene material that is generally offensive to public morals, and no local commercials. Right. So again, this information is all available in the rebate guide that is available on our website. It's downloadable and it has all this information much more detailed in case you want to browse and flip through some more. Right. Moving on. So what is a qualifying production? So here's where we have to use some nuance, right? For TNT production, pretty straightforward. 51% minimum ownership, 50% production activity, ownership of the rights, 100% to the TNT company, 100% crew, and as pre-approved, that would just mean you have to just let us know in advance, okay, I'm bringing in a gaffer or a first AD from the US or the UK, something like that, just so that we are aware, right? For international co-production, the 25% ownership by a TNT company, we have gotten numerous questions about this. Once both parties are okay with the TNT company giving up the 25% ownership, then it's fine. But you have to submit that in writing with signed and stamped by both parties, by the international company and the local company. I'm going to repeat that again. 25% ownership of the production by a TNT company is negotiable once both parties agree that the TNT company will waive their rights, and you submit a document, a letter, formal correspondence to FilmTT that says that is the arrangement, and it's signed and stamped by both parties. Okay, so moving on. Right, so what are qualifying production expenses? So that little acronym QTTPE, it's a bit of a mouthful, but basically qualifying production expenditure is any money spent on a production that would qualify towards the rebate figure, right? So this is in 4 broad categories: development, production expenditure, distribution, and per diem and hosting. So we're going to go through each of these categories and I'll try to give some examples so you kind of know what's there. And we have examples in the rebate guide as well. Right, so development. So rights acquisition expenditure to purchase intellectual property that has originated in TNT or by TNT nationals or residents is eligible. So if you purchase a book, for instance, like if somebody wants to make a film about Dragon Can Dance or that's not TNT, Regina. Yeah, okay, so that's Dragon Can Dance, for instance. If you purchase the rights for Dragon Can Dance, it originated in TNT by Earl Lovelace, and he's a TNT national and a resident. So that the figure that you pay to him would count, right? On the flip side, at the bottom here, you see the following are not eligible. So a deferment, deferrals, deferments, or royalties. So I will get back to what's up there. But just to explain on the flip side, the non-eligible spend, right? For deferral, if you pay like a future amount for, and like accounting, for instance, it's a future amount to be counted in another financial period, then you can't list that for that given period in your expenditure because it's not being utilized right now in this space. or in this fiscal year. So it cannot be counted towards the rebate, right? For royalties, the best example I can think of is if anybody saw that British film yesterday about everybody forgetting the Beatles except this one guy. For the purpose of that film, obviously the Beatles are world renowned. So the production had to pay 10 million, average 10 million in rights to use that film, to use the music of the Beatles, and they use about 17 songs. That 10 million was about, I think, 40% of their overall budget. And obviously, because the Beatles own the songs, they would get royalties from the film for the use of their music. But those royalties, if it were going towards our rebate, for instance, those royalties would not be eligible, right? So I hope that's clear, right? To go back up, purchasing trademarks, again, trademarks, scripts, music, content that is an IP that is from Trinidad and Tobago itself will count. External IP will not, because it's not a Trinidad and Tobago project, right? Okay, so. Oh, and this is important to know. Cost of IP acquisition must not exceed 35% of the overall production budget. That's very important to note. All right, so categories under production expenditure. So this is not the entire list, but this will give you an idea of what does count and what doesn't, right? Under production, we have production work, equipment, software, animation, cinematography and sound, rentals of lighting and camera and audio equipment, art department, set construction, props, wardrobe, makeup and accessories, special effects, visual effects, audio effects, location fees, sound stages, and set rentals. Under distribution, so once it's pre-approved, expenditure for distribution would be if you're creating trailer for like film festival, or for even if you're doing it for, I guess I would say appliances rebate, even if you have like a little trailer made that supports your application, that will count. Marketing videos, point of purchase videos. I will put out here and say that the rebate program was created during the era of tapes and DVDs, hence the mountain of DVD copies we have in our office of many films. But given the era we're in now, it is acceptable, and I don't think we say that enough. It is acceptable for you to submit your film on a flash drive. It is. We can make it work. You can also submit a DVD if that's fine for you, but we do accept flash drives with the film on it, right? Just making sure I put that out there. Per diem and hosting. So if you are incurring expenditure to house and feed your crew, your international and your local crew, you can account for that underneath the rebate once you have receipts and invoices. So that is, I know it's a lot of paper. You can submit it hard copy and soft copy. We do accept both. And I know it's a lot of paper, but I think it's important for us to understand that the audit process it's relatively rigorous. You have to get your own auditor to audit your financials, and then the ministry auditor also does it. So I think it's worth noting that all receipts and invoices for payments really means all receipts and invoices. All. We will label them if the labeling is an issue. Do as much as you can, and put it out in sections, and once we file in it, we organize it improperly so we know where to find what. But please note, they really do mean all invoices and all receipts. They really mean all. Right. So what doesn't qualify? So non-QTT PE. So again, we will dive a little more into this when I show you how to calculate a rebate when we do the math, right? So non-QTT PE, includes financing charges, bank loan charges, insurance charges, and this very detailed list that we have here So under financing expenditure, producer fees do not count. So let me explain this part because I have got questions about this. The producer / owner of the film cannot necessarily recoup the money that they pay themselves for the film under the rebate, right? So it says here, where individual performs both producer tasks and tasks normally reserved for personnel from other departments, evidence of the provision of the applicable non-producer tasks, including the rate of compensation, must be provided for the rebate to be considered. So if you act as the producer and as the makeup artist, for instance, you need to very clearly outline, this is what I did as makeup artist, this is how much I was paid, and this is the total. That will count. But the producer, the cost of being the producer for the film will not, because it's like you're paying yourself and getting back that money, right? That's how it's seen in the language of the rebates. I understand the hesitance, but that is the language of it, right? So we went through deferments, profit participation, residuals, royalties already. Land and buildings of a substantial nature, sets do not count as substantial because sets was counted as under the art department. Land and buildings of a substantial nature, I would say that is like if you buy land to build a 18th century medieval castle to film Beauty and the Beast, the land and the castle will not count because that's of a substantial nature. But if you create a set in like a warehouse to mimic that, the set construction will count, right? So the land and the building for your castle, sorry, those are of substantial nature and they are non-qualifying, right? The cost of services embodied in goods. So goods created for production, manufactured overseas and imported does not qualify. So for example, if you hire Jim Henson's workshop to create a puppet of Dobby the house elf from Harry Potter for your film, or a house elf, and you just happen to name him Dobby, and it's imported by your production company or imported by any TNT company and then sold to you for your film, you cannot qualify that for the rebates, unfortunately. The cost of getting Dobby made will not qualify in your rebate calculation, right? So the caveat here, which I think is good, is if it's generally supplied by a foreign supplier with a history of supplying goods, so certain things will count, it can qualify, it'll be up to the discretion of FilmTT and the panel. So Kodak stock batteries, things that are like integral to making, to actually the production process of the film itself, right? So I hope that is clear. Again, if you have any questions about this, just put it in the chat and they will pass it along to me, right? So pre-approved qualifying production label. So this is another QTTPE abbreviation, but this is QTTPL, right? So qualifying Trinidad and Tobago production label. So this is the labor. So remember that 20% top up we talked about? These are the labor positions that would qualify under that 20% top up. So we have them categories. We have managerial, you notice producers on here. So on the managerial, we have unit production manager, line producer, key researcher, legal team. Producers not there. So note that, right? We have artistic, production, set, hair and makeup, costume, script writing, casting, lead and supporting. We have technical, the people who actually hoist the equipment and make the thing happen. Post-production and animation. So again, not an exhaustive list. If you have a special role that you don't see here that you would like to get clarified, not a problem. Send us an email and we will take it into consideration and see where it could fit. I hope you are still with me. Right. QTTPL, right? All right. So now for the fun part. So this is an example of a rebate application form, provisional application form for international film. So I just kind of filled out the application information so you could see what happened. So you will see red boxes around the text box. That means it's a mandatory field. we have had issues in the past where all the information was not filled out or some things are left out, and having to go back and forth, it does delay the process. So this is page 1 of 3. I'm very proud to say that this page form is only 3 pages. It's indeed glorious. And you'll see in the top right-hand corner, we have a reference number now. So every film every production, I should say, that registers for the rebate is supplied with a reference number. We will come up with a reference number and then just let you know what it is, right? And it would be on your, it will be on the form, it will be on the checklists, and we are actually going to include it in provisional certificates as well, right? So this is a new filing system, new forms, new everything. We do. Okay, so this is the example of applicant company, right? Company information. So moving on. So this is another example. This is for a Trinidad and Tobago production. So you can see the difference here. For the international production company, you have to supply the same information for the TNT production company. So what we do is that we would just like run a little check on the international company, make sure they exist. For the international company number, what do you see here? For the TNT production, when you submit your certificate of incorporation, this will tell us what your company number is when you register your business. And the international company also has to supply documentation to tell us that supports what they put their company number as. Right? So that is something just to keep in mind. Right? So this is it for a TNT production. It's a little shorter, same information. Right. So this is the dreaded estimated budget information. So you will notice that the information on this slide for estimated budget is different from the final budget details. And again, when we calculate the rebates, you'll see the differences, right? So what is sources of funds, you'll attach that separately. So sources of funds, public and private, a letter from the investors saying that, yes, I intend to supply this production with $200,000 towards the making of this film. But that'll be private. Public, if you get any, again, grants, funding, if you get a letter stating that you are eligible for X amount of funding, you need to provide that information to us so that we are aware of where the money is coming from to make the film, right? And please note, I do think it's important to reiterate that at the end of, well, once you apply for a provisional certificate and a final certificate, audited. So your production must be audited. If you don't have it audited, the ministry will audit it. So at some point in the process, the film and your financials for the film will be audited. Because I have been asked if the auditing process is necessary. It is, right? For a matter of transparency. So let's get cracking. So just outline if any stage of the production process will be outside Trinidad and Tobago. This is a TNT production film, so in this case, no. Okay, so if your estimated production expenditure is $2 million, then the qualifying spend out of that $2 million is $1.8 million, right? So the $200,000 difference, let's say that is estimated combination of non-qualifying spend, whatever that totals, plus the anticipated state funding that you might get. So if you say you got a grant from Ministry of Culture, and the grant is $100,000, you already have to take that $100,000 out to your total production expenditure and say, okay, all right, to the side. And from the balance, after you take out the non-qualifying, then you could say, okay, this is my QTTP, right? The portion of the 1.8 million that is qualifying labor, which is just basically how much money in total did you spend paying labor? You spent $250,000, you put it there, and then you calculate the rebates. So your next slide is actually how to calculate the rebate itself. So we're going to move to that. But you see the distribution section here, very straightforward. Any film festivals or any things you intend to submit the film to listed there. It doesn't have to materialize. It's not a promise to put your film in every single festival, but at least give us an idea of where you want this film to go, because before you even start filming, you should know where this film is going to go. You should know, okay, it's going to be in cinema, it's going to be in Movie Town, or I want it to be there. I'm going to submit to film festivals. I'm going to try to get it on TTT. even if I'm going to sell it to Netflix, something like that. But before you start filming, and before you apply for the rebate, please, please, please know that you have to know, or you have to have an idea of what you're going to do with your film once it's done. Because you can't make a film and put it on a shelf and just let it sit there. People need to see it because you worked hard on it, right? Right. So, my favorite parts, the math, right? So, how to calculate a provisional rebate for TNT production. So, on average, TNT production costs $2 million to make. Might be a bit of a small number, but let's see what. So, I like to differentiate the on-location spend because I think it's important when doing the rebate administrative side of things to understand that the total production expenditure might not necessarily be everything that is spent within the borders of our great nation, right? Particularly for international productions, post-production work is done abroad. Even for local films, post-production work can be done abroad if you send it abroad to be edited or color corrected. But in this case, everything was spent here, local crew and services, right? So like we said, qualifying expenditure. Okay, so these numbers are different. Just bear with me, right, guys? Bear with me, right? So qualifying expenditure, 1.6, and out of that 1.6, you calculate the flat 35, which is the base for all local productions. A flat 35% across the board once your budget is minimum US $15,000, right? So flat 35, you get from this figure, you get 560,000. Out of the qualifying expenditure, you have spent 150,000 paying labor across the board, right? So the 20% top up is not on this, on the qualifying, the QTCPE. And this is where the math gets to all of us, especially me who struggles with math, right? Qualifying labor is the 20% is the 20% of the qualifying labor spend. It's not 20% of QTCPE. So then it's not 35 plus 25 equals 55, and then 55% of 1.6 million. No, it's not that. I've seen it, I've done it. It's not that, right? It's when you separate your qualifying expenditure from your overall expenditure, and then you take out what you paid your local labor in total, you find the 20% top up on the labor cost. So in this case, it's 150,000. 20% of that is 30,000. And then you add the rebate figure. Why does it say 38,000? Oh my gosh. Then you would just add the flat 35 plus the 20% top up, and that would give you what your estimated rebate figure is. Now, I will say the estimated rebate figure is almost always higher than the final rebate figure, because when the rebate is granted after you complete the film, and once you have settled all your finances as it relates to the making of the film, so paying people, etc., that is when your rebate is calculated. So you could estimate a rebate figure of $2 million, but that is not an accurate reflection of the financial statements itself. And your auditor will also guide you in terms of, okay, this qualifies, this doesn't qualify, based on the criteria that they are given, right? So you have an estimated rebate figure that is usually higher than the final rebate figure, but we'll calculate the final rebate a little later, right? So once you have submitted all your documents on the checklist, you get one of these, Provisional Certificate, right? So very simple, it's a letter stating that you have been awarded this under the program for X film. This is the date of your application. This is your on-location spend, and this is how much your estimated rebate is calculated at. So again, it's valid for 6 months, and it can be extended. So I know a lot of persons have asked the question about if the rebate is if the provisional certificate expires, if you have to reapply. You don't unless you do not inform us that you need an extension. So if you know it's coming up only 6 months and you're not finished filming or you still have more to do, all you have to do is send an email and then send a letter stating that you would like the provisional certificate to be extended. and it can be for another 6 months. So it can be extended within an 18-month window. And once it lapses 18 months without a final certificate being applied for, then you have to reapply from scratch. And usually by that time, some significant details would have changed, right? Okay, so this is what a provisional certificate looks like. Right, so you've premiered, you've shot your film, you had an opening, you opened at TTFF 2021, red carpet, hopefully no masks, glamour, the works, round of applause from the minister, lovely. So what next, right? What do we do next? You apply for a final certificate. Yeah, right? So this is the final application checklist. Differs from the provisional, of course, but these are the documents required to be granted your rebate, and the rebate will not be granted unless this criteria is fulfilled, right? Okay, so completed application form, again, it's like 2 to 3 pages, very short. Auditor's report, I have an auditor's report template that I will show you. You are provided with an auditor's report template, which is a new document that we have drafted. And please note that any auditor you use must have an ICAT number that is clearly displayed on the auditor's report, right? And it should be on their letterhead, their company letterhead as well. Audited statements and detailed audited detailed expenditure for the production. I have gotten a question about if they need audited expenditure for the producer. No, it's for the company. So what I recommend is your film itself, your production should have its own bank account. So and this is usually where the cleanest rebates have gone. They have a bank account, especially for the production, and all the money for that production goes through that one bank account. So you can keep track of everything. You paid $5 for a bag of ice for a shoot outside in the Hudson. The $5 is right there. You have a receipt from the $5 from the quick shop. It's right there. Everything goes through one bank account. It's very clean. It's very straightforward. And you will find that it makes the audit process much, much cleaner, right? The most successful applications in terms of paperwork and cleanliness and speed of turnaround time were the ones that had a designated bank account for their production, right? Final shooting schedule, just a little example. This is what we did. This is what we shot on these days. First day call sheets and production reports from the director. The production manager could assemble these. Please label those things. Just so that when you submit, they're all like in order. They label and file so that we know what we're looking at, right? My favorite thing, the tax clearance certificate. Should I zoom? Tax clearance. Let me just zoom to the side. Tax clearance certificate. It's very, very important that this be submitted because it takes a while to get it. I think it takes at least 3 to 5 weeks to get the tax clearance certificate if you have not applied for it before. And while BIR has been very, very efficient in this pandemic, I give them a clap. I was out there in 5 seconds. This is a document that I think even before you apply for the rebate, you should start thinking about getting this in order so that when you're ready to ask for it, you have it. And it doesn't go to the panel and they're like, where's the tax clearance certificate? And we have to keep going back and forth. That back and forth it keeps back the process by a lot because calling the panel and then back to the ministry, that's a delay that you don't really want. So take in front and see about this early, especially if you have a registered production company already, right? Bank statements regarding funds for the production, spoke about that earlier, producers agreements, and evidence of applicants' rights in the production. So this is a letter. So say 2 people are producing a film together. A little letter, signed by both parties stating that we agree that we are making this film and we are sharing the rights, this percentage to this percentage. So if Leslie and I making a film and Leslie I'm getting 30% of the film, she owns 30% of the film and I own the remaining 70%, we need documentation stating that since I am the applicant on the form, I own 70% of the film and my partner owns 30%, this has been signed by both of us. Here you go, right? Clean, simple, straightforward. Full and final list of cast and crew, show nationality/residency. This is a spreadsheet. I know sometimes it can be confusing, but it's easier to just do it as a spreadsheet and list everybody's information, the ID number, and how much they were paid, in addition to the letter stating that all suppliers have been paid. In the event that all suppliers have not been paid for whatever reason, we will need a letter from the persons who have not been paid stating that you are aware that your payment is incoming or that it has yet to be made, but efforts are being made to complete that transaction between the two parties. Right? So just, if you have any questions about that, I can supply you with a template if you need something like that. But yes, we do need to know that all suppliers for the production have been paid. Distribution agreements, letter confirming distribution. If you have, if TTT has told you, once you hit the film festival circuit and you're done, shop it by me. A letter from TTT stating that we agree to show your film 3 times a week for the next year, every commercial break, something like that. But once it's in writing, we can comfortably say, okay, this is happening. And again, company stamp, right? Time coded DVD copy or film or extracts, or a rush evidence completion. So basically a rush. Like I said, you can send a DVD or you can send a flash drive. I have gotten both, because the panel also likes to see the production. They really do look forward to that. And I think it's important that when you are, they are finance people, and I think it's important that when you are trying to explain the validity and you're showing the validity of a program like the Rebate to persons who might not be from that realm of understanding of the arts, it's important to show them the fruits of your labor, show them your hard work. And I can safely say all the films that we have shown them in the last 2 and or something years, they have thoroughly enjoyed. They really have enjoyed them. They have all been excellent, of top quality, and I can't wait to see what you'll submit else. It's so much fun to have private film parties. Right. So this is the auditor's report template, right? So this needs to go on the auditor's letterhead. They can literally copy and paste this, or if they have their own report format, they can do so. But the key pieces that we need to have are, this is the film, this is the production company, and we conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards, and this is the total qualifying expenditure, of which X is qualifying labor. This is the rebate for the period, boom, right? Which is all the blanks that you're seeing there. Again, we can supply this template to you for your auditor, because I know not all auditors have audited films before. So those that don't and need the guidance, happy to provide the templates. We will from now on be including them in the packages. So if you've applied for the rebate and you don't have this document, just put it in the chat and let them know, and we will send it out to you once we're done here, right? And you see the little line in the bottom there for the ICAT number. Please ensure that they put the ICAT number on the documents, right? So move on. All right, so final budget information, my favorite parts. So basic questions, and just to let y'all know, in redoing the forms, we listen to y'all on what y'all would like to see on the forms. We also have followed the advice of the AFCI, the Association of Film Commissioners International. They put us in contact with the Fiji Film Commission, and we used between AFCI, Fiji, as well as Malta, we looked at their rebate application process to figure out how to make these films detail-oriented, but yet simple, because nobody likes to sit and fill out forms that are 11 pages long. You're welcome. Okay. So, has any part of this film been sponsored or commissioned by any business institution? So this is an international film, right? So for the sake of international film, I said yes on this one. So all sources of funds, local and otherwise, would be attached separately. Any foreign entities contribute to the funding? Yes. So I give details. Don't need to give more details on this. Give details would be attached separately. Any if you all have any letters stating with an international co-production, obviously, that I have here with Filler and Line Friends, if Filler sponsoring wardrobe, put that there. Filler states, we have agreed to sponsor the wardrobe for this film being shot on location in Trinidad, you know, for transparency purposes. If the embassy says, hey, we want to contribute a little something, you could film in the embassy, look, $50,000. You include all that, right? Non-cash contributions, again, yes, that could be use of a space. Like I said, the embassy says, for $50,000, you could use a room in here, a conference room as a filming space. Airline tickets, deferred payments. The deferred payments won't count towards the rebate, but still attach proof of it. Again, transparency, public funds, government, right? Is there any possible budget spent outside TNT for this purpose? Yes, editing and post-production. And what percentage of the budget was overseas? 41%. So the majority was spent in TNT shooting, right? Final budget details. So this is an international film. So the figures are a little higher, more money to play with, right? Production expenditure here, 6.8. No government funding received. On location spend, 4 million. QTTPE 3.2. Qualifying labor, 800,000. Rebate, 1.28. Right? Will you provide FilmTT with monthly updates of revenue earned? So you see this question here, G, section D, G. Will you provide FilmTT with 6 monthly updates of revenue earned by this film? If you tick yes, please understand that you are bound by this document to provide FilmTT with updates on your film. So it's always great to know that films that have come through the program are performing really well, even if it's not in Trinidad and Tobago. But you need to, data and reporting is a very fundamental part of moving the industry forward. If we know how well you've been performing, even if it is that you screened at a film festival in Czechoslovakia, tell us. We want to know, because we want to celebrate that with you. That is a milestone, right? So if you tick yes to this, I would like to be updated every 6 months about how your film is. I thank you in advance. Right. So how to calculate a final rebate for international co-production. So bigger numbers, same math, right? Total production expenditure, 6.8 million. So the on-location spend was 4 million, and the external balance, which was the post-production, editing, and non-qualifying expenditure, so this will also include non-qualifying expenditure, is 2.8 million, right? So that 2.8 is outside of our borders. It has nothing to do with us, right? So of that on location, 4 million, the qualifying spend that matches all the categories that we went through earlier, 3.2 million, and 35% of that is 1,120,000, right? I hope my math is correct. Ooh. Right. So again, the qualifying labor out of this figure here, which is the 3.2 million, which is the QTTP, out of the 3.2 million, you spend 800,000 paying local labor. That's the total cost of that. So the 20% top up is 20% of 800,000, and the estimated rebate is then the QTTPE plus the 20% top up. QTTPE, the 35% on the QTTPE plus the 20% top up, right? Again, the rebate, the final figure is usually lower than the estimated figure. So estimated figure for a rebate of this size, well, for on location spend of 4 million, they might probably estimate, a little 2.5 million. Yeah, we get back 2.5. And then when you start ticking off categories, oh wait, this doesn't qualify, this doesn't qualify, this doesn't qualify, it comes all the way down, which is fine. It's fine. 1.28 back on 4 million, it's not that bad. But again, just be aware of the nuance of what is spent on location, what qualifies under the categories, and separating the labor costs to get the 20%, right? So this was some great math, guys, some great math. We're doing really well, right? So important tips, and we are winding down. This is nearly the end. Like I said earlier, provisional certificates can be extended within an 18-month window. All you have to do is formally let FilmTT know. We are very, very accommodating people. And we know it takes a while to make films. We know financiers come on board, cast members come on, things change. You might win the lotto and say, I put in $1 million into my firm. Things happen. So once you let us know, and once you keep us abreast of your details on what you're doing, we are happy to extend for you, right? Ensure your company is registered BIR and your taxes are up to date. I feel like I said this 10 times, but yeah, that's the biggest takeaway from here. Before you even apply for the rebate, please register your company with BIR and make sure that taxes are paid and are up to date. If you need help on that, happy to, call BIR and help you figure it out. But it's a fundamental part of the process, and I don't advise anybody to apply for the rebates and want a provisional certificate without doing those things, particularly registering your company, because you will run into problems later down the line. And the process will just keep getting drawn out and drawn out, right? So you see that third part there? The rebate panel consists of BIR personnel and it will not be signed off without a tax clearance certificate. I did also say that earlier. The tax clearance certificate is basically like your film at this point. It's equally as important as your film in getting your rebates. Like I said, start inquiring about it from the jump, because it takes a while to do, and I will happily accept a flash drive copy of your contents in place of a DVD. But if you want to give me a DVD, that's also fine. I have a drawer for them. I have a drawer full of DVDs, right? So, any questions? Feel free to shoot. I think I have one question earlier. Pretty soon not added. So, okay, so from Jody. Show me thank you slide because I wrote out on it. Okay, questions. So, right. So Jody asks if the person that owns the firm rights can't get paid. So I understand the concern. But in the language of the rebate, the fee for the producer itself, no. If you perform another role, yes, you do get that payment. You will get paid for that. But the rebates will be paid back to your production company. So it's kind of seen as getting paid twice, I hope that helps. If you form a brand new company with a provisional certificate, I don't understand. Can you clarify that question for me? If you form a brand new company from Mandisa, would a provisional certificate apply?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Because the company would have to be on the provisional application form. So yeah. Yes, it should be a limited liability company. You don't want to assume that kind of personal responsibility onto yourself. So I will recommend it is a limited liability company. If the film is already done, so this is a very good question. We have been willing to do so for local films, but it can't be 100% done. So if you have like a rush, and you have just like final things to shoot, to clean up, research to do, yes, you can apply. We do make that consideration for local productions. I hope that does help. So yeah, shoot us an email, send me some information, and I will get back to you on that. How long does it actually get the rebate? So like I said, a lot of the holdback on the rebate is the documentation. But once you submit your documents and the panel signs off on it, it's between 3 to 8 months from the sign off date. And I will let you know what date the rebate was signed off on, right? So 3 to 6/8 months to actually get the rebates. Again, we're in a pandemic. It's kind of shaky with Ministry of Finance, but the communication is constant, and we do check in with them, and they let us know, okay, listen, it's coming along, things are happening. And once we do receive it, you are notified immediately, right? Any more questions? You're on mute, Deb. You're on mute.
Thank you. That was quite a mouthful, Regina. I had my pen and I had my paper and I was taking my notes. Don't have a film yet, but
yet.
I have the information now, and I hope you guys can appreciate what it takes to process the rebate and to get things in place for you all to get your money back. So we're now at 327.
I have one question from Arnaldo James. Entirely animated films can access rebates. History of animation. I don't know that an animated film has gone the entire way. They have applied. Echo. Meteor Mike Depps. Yeah. I know that animated films have applied and they have received provisional certificates in the past, but they have not gone all the way to the end, so they have not gotten the final certificate. But yes, entirely animated films can access the rebate. They are one of the qualifying categories. And they're also a category in a regular film. So if even like the title card or something is animated, that the cost of that goes toward the rebate itself. But if you want to apply by all means. What if it's an NGO? An NGO. That is a good question. You know what? Send me an email and I'm gonna find out for you because I'm sure there's an answer somewhere. Limited liability for sure. Most of the productions have been limited liability. But for NGO, just send me an email and I will find out for you and clarify that.
Definitely, and I'm sure we have a lot more questions coming that are going to be coming your way, Regina. So get ready next week. The end of this week and next week, you have a lot of questions and a lot of work to do. But that's what it's about. That's what we're here for. So yes, indeed, well done, Regina. Thank you so very much for all that information. And you guys understand that the team at FilmTT is there. They're there to help you to answer any questions you have. Just reach out to them and they will give you the information you need. All right. We have one more question in the context of the partnership with Eastern Credit Union. Would they be willing to advance financing to the project on the basis of issuance of the provisional certificate?
Yes. So Mr. Lewis did he did touch on that briefly earlier this morning. And Dion did bring that up as a good point. So we can actually hammer that out with ECU and let it be that the provisional certificate is a key part of your application toward a loan.
Yes.
We definitely could be willing to do that once you're aware that the criteria of the provisional certificate is the 6 months validity as well as the 3 month to the final application. So
correct. Just to tie in with what Jason is asking, yes, Eastern Credit Union is saying that they will offer the loan once we give them the provisional certificate from the production. So to answer your question, yes. They were agreeing to 75% of the provisional certificate that we submit.
Also, I wanted to add, as a last thing, when I was going through the provisional certificates, I did say that the estimated budget figures, you are not pigeonholed to them because they do tend to change, but as accurate as you can be in the provisional certificate, if your end goal is using that to move on to ECU, I will say try to be as accurate as possible in terms of funding and budget figures. Even if you overestimate, slightly, don't overdo it. Even if you overestimate in that regard, you can use that to say, okay, it will show up in your line budget, in the different line items in your budget. This is what I intend to spend this on, and if I need $1.6 million from Eastern Credit Union in a loan, which is 75% of my rebate, then try as hard as possible to make sure that your estimated rebate, your estimated budget is not too far out of field for what your final budget will actually be, because you have to account for the things that happen, which is the nature of filmmaking.
All right, great. Thank you so very much, Regina. And as I said, Regina and the team at FilmTT are there for any further specific questions you may have. Feel free to email them and get your information.